Let's see if I can remember how to intro this podcast.
We do it just rarely enough that it's like
fuck.
I forget how to do it every time.
I've forgotten everything about what we do in this room.
That's why I don't touch the mixer, 'cause I'm afraid I'll like forget how it works.
I shoved a banana in the mixer. That's what we do, right? A lot of Planet of the Apes.
I left a banana on the mixer, and I can't remember if I just left it on there or if that is how the mixer needs to be set up.
I've been watching Planet of the Apes and playing Donkey Kong. My mind's all fucked up. Well, here we go.
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Welcome to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts. I'm Ben.
And I'm Curt.
And this week, we are talking about Vince Staples.
Yay.
Yeah. Excited. I've been waiting for this. His new album came out.
I know. I was excited too because it's been a different experience for me as far as getting ready for the podcast, because everything I believe that we've done up to this point has been things that I know a lot about, and then I rewatch them or play them or listen to them to relearn some things. But this, I had never listened, aside from one song you had sent me. I'd never even listened to Vince Staples before getting ready for this, so I'm excited too. A little different for me.
Yeah, we've got a variety of perspectives. Also introducing some variety into the show. This is by far the earliest we've ever recorded.
Yes, it is. 7 a.m.
7 in the a.m. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's keep the energy up.
Yeah,
keep it moving. Yeah. Grooving.
I went to bed at midnight.
Me too.
So I was going to start saying something about Mr. Staples, but let's do our thing first.
Our check-in.
So what have you been doing since our last episode?
What have I been up to? Well, I took a week-long trip to Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
As a family reunion. Didn't play many video games, so it was a complete wash.
Yep. Waste of my goddamn
fucking time. Waste of a vacation. No, it was great. I got to go and see some family that I haven't seen in a long time.
That's awesome.
I got to play the game of dealing with a road trip to Missouri. Play that fun media game of trying to find things to look at. I landed on clouds actually. Did a lot of looking at clouds.
There you go.
Yeah,
they definitely have clouds out there.
They do. If there's one thing they have, it's clouds, and that might actually be the one thing they have. Learned about my cumulus clouds, my stratus clouds, my nimbus clouds, my cirrus clouds.
I have
talk about clouds.
I have some strange insight into your life that you might not know that I have, because I was hanging out with your wife while you were gone.
Good.
For the listeners, me and my soon-to-be wife and Ben and his wife, we're all very good friends. So any four of us could be hanging out in any combination at any time. So I was hanging out with Ben's wife, and she had said that you had said something to the effect of, I have to be in the car for 2 days straight, and the end of that ends in Missouri. Which is the saddest, Well,
it was the thing that I was thinking about was on the drive, and this occurred to me 6 hours into the first day of driving, which I didn't even know what the fuck driving was by that point. But I was sitting there, and I realized, because I moved around a lot as a kid, so I'm used to, if I'm sitting down for that long, it's because I'm on a plane and I'm going to end up in Japan or on the West Coast. California, I'm going to look at the Pacific Ocean. But now it's all right, 2 12-hour days of just sitting down with infrequent breaks. And at the end of it lies Missouri.
See, I'm glad I said that, because that gives me more insight, because the way I interpreted that with my pessimistic attitude was that meant all of that work just to be in Missouri because Missouri sucks. But the way you say it makes it sound like the time spent traveling to only end up in Missouri rather than Japan is... It's more of a distance thing than a quality of the...
There was a little bit. And this was before I had actually ended up in Missouri, which, by the way, just so we're clear, I have a newfound appreciation for Missouri. My uncle, who lives in Missouri, actually lives in a much nicer part of Missouri now than he did last time I visited there. So, like, he's got a bunch of land, and I got to see, you know, some of his field. He has a lagoon where all their gray water from their septic tank goes, so that's kind of gross. But Missouri has some very nice parts. The drive there is brutally flat.
So all you listeners from Missouri,
calm down,
worry.
Put down your fucking phones, don't at me. Missouri's fine. It's just that I get very pessimistic when I'm on the road. And yeah, I was not feeling great.
Not optimal Ben.
You're not going to get your best Ben if you find me, 12 hours into a 24-hour road trip.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's like the only thing I can compare that to is when you're having and it's like not even nearly as bad, but when you're like having a really bad day at work and then you look and you're halfway through your day and you're like, my God, we're only halfway there. We've done all of this and we're only halfway there.
Yeah, it's a bad feeling. But Missouri went great. Family reunion went great. The wedding reception went great. Everything was awesome in Missouri. Other than that, what else have I been doing? Oh, one thing that I wanted to talk about was there's a YouTube guy whose work I watch called Noah Caldwell-Gervais. And he mostly does like video game critiques. But recently, he's moved into a VW van with his wife and his dog, and they're just driving around the country. And like as they find cool stuff, they're visiting it. And visiting friends and family and such. But he made this 1.5 hour long travelogue about the Southwest United States. It's very like classically travelogue structured, where he takes the kind of landmarks that they visited and talks about them, and there's this awesome video footage of them. It's called The Desert Bus, a Southwestern Ramble. You can find it on YouTube. It's really excellent, and it kind of connects to one of your interests because there's in the last couple of years there's been this critical conversation surrounding Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas, when it came out, was not that critically well received because of like a lot of bugs and stuff, and the community, kind of took that to heart. But over time, they fixed all those bugs. So in the last few years, there's been like this critical reanalysis of Fallout New Vegas to say, this is actually one of the best Fallout games and maybe like one of the best games ever made. So Noah Caldwell-Gervais was involved in that critical look at Fallout New Vegas to say, wow, this has a lot of strengths that people kind of overlooked. Like there's a lot of complexity here that a lot of people might not know about. And because Fallout New Vegas takes place in the Southwest, you get to see Noah Gervais' perspective on the land that inspired Fallout New Vegas.
Oh, wow.
So he has this whole section about the Hoover Dam, which is extremely important in Fallout New Vegas, about what the Hoover Dam represents to the Southwest United States. Like, there are big communities in the Southwest that wouldn't exist without the Hoover Dam to kind of supply them with water.
Yeah.
So what happens at the end of Fallout New Vegas and that choice that it gives you, no spoilers, kind of means a lot in the context of that game, which is so much about this community that exists in New Vegas, about the continued survival of that community, about whether or not it's even worth that community continuing to survive, So seeing and I don't think he ever even mentions Fallout New Vegas, but those ideas are present in his travelogue. So yeah, that 1.5 hour long travelogue, The Desert Bus, a Southwestern Ramble by Noah Caldwell-Gervais, was one of the best things that I've seen on YouTube.
How many desert buses out of 5 would you rank it? 5 desert buses?
5 desert buses out of 5. He starts by talking about Desert Bus, the game.
The game. I was just gonna be like, did you know?
That's how he opens it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, it's really cool. He draws the comparison that Desert Bus is this very kind of cynical game, both about driving and about video games. About like, you can make a video game about anything. It doesn't mean it's going to be fun. That technically has interactivity in it. You technically have to keep interacting with Desert Bus It's probably not worth going into what Desert Bus is. Look up Desert Bus. It's an old Penn and Teller game where you just drive and like your bus veers off the side of the road, so you have to constantly be correcting it back on.
They're dicks is the long version.
Penn and Teller are dicks, but it's like there's an old Atari game called Window Shades, I think, or Window Blinds.
I don't know that one.
It's just a window with blinds down, and you press a button or move the joystick or something to make the blinds open, and behind the blinds is a new picture every time. So there's this long tradition of people using video games, using like the interactivity of the medium for these weird artistic expressions that are in a way about video games and about like visual art. And I think Desert Bus belongs pretty squarely in that tradition, which has flourished recently because of how easy it is to make a video game these days. Like anyone with a weird idea about something they want people to see or do can just make a game, put it up on itch.io, and then they're off to the races. Like that game is part of the record now. But anyway, back to Desert Bus. Yeah, he talks about that. And he ends up kind of refuting Desert Bus a little bit because his whole video is about, no, this road is not boring. This road is only boring if you make it boring. There's all this different stuff that you can look at all in the Southwest. Even though it looks like a barren desert, you can still find interesting things if you know how to look.
There you go. My dream is to move to the Southwest.
Yeah?
If I can ever get Laura to leave the state.
New
Mexico, baby.
What do you like about New Mexico?
I don't know.
Breaking Bad?
That's, pretty... I think that's kind of what started it. And maybe I just like cinematography more than the Southwest, but I just think that watching that show over and over again exposed me to their landscapes and scenery in ways that I had never thought about before, because I had mostly just thought like desert, So I think I don't know, I've just kind of become intrigued by it, and I think I don't know. It interests me.
Even if it doesn't end up like being your forever home, like it would be cool to go down there and spend some time and like make a little life down there, just see what it's like.
Unfortunately, I swore when I moved here, when I opened up my third box of Just Plushies, I said, I'm going to do this one more time, and I'm going to die in the next house that I move into. So... it's pretty much...
It sounds like kind of a blood oath that you made.
I mean, I could get rid of plushies, but last week I bought 2 more. So
it's going to be tough.
Kind of going in the opposite.
They're coming in faster than they're going out.
For sure.
Yeah.
But anyway...
yeah. Other than that, Spelunky. Still playing fucking Spelunky.
I bought it, and I haven't even really played it.
Yeah.
Played it for like a half hour, and then I just like forgot that I bought it. But it's a Steam summer sale for like another day.
I bought a lot of shit at the Steam summer sale.
I didn't buy too much. I did, like, one thing that I did buy was, and that's kind of like the only video game thing I have from this week, it was like $3 for a bundle of Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, which, if you know me, boy do I love some Left 4 Dead. And it was kind of cool, like, when you experience something you like a lot, a lot of people, like myself included, have like these nostalgic feelings about like, oh man, I wish I could go back and experience this again for the first time, and you can't. Or if you play it again or watch it again, you're like, yeah, I mean, that was okay to play for a half hour, but it doesn't feel like it used to when I really loved it. But I had an interesting experience playing Left 4 Dead, because I assume when things go on the Steam summer sale, it's incredibly cheap. People that haven't played the game in a long time will play it again. People that have never played it because they didn't really care, like, oh, but now it's like, oh, it's $2, I'll buy it. So the main sell of Left 4 Dead is it's 4-player co-op. So in its heyday, I played a lot of online Left 4 Dead, and I've played it a little bit here and there throughout the years since college, but it's never... you could sit in a lobby all day and never find 4 people. So that was really cool. I got to play it again, and I actually got a little bit of that, like, feeling you're never supposed to have again, where I was like, I'm playing with 3 random strangers. This feels like it used to feel in college. And I pretty much sat around for like 2 days straight, just like playing Left 4 Dead. And it also, like, it's one of those games where when you first start playing it, you get a ton of achievements like really quickly, and then it peters out, and it's like a dopamine. You just like, I got like 9 achievements the first time I did a campaign, and I was like, oh,
I love this game.
I'm gonna do this all day, and it was awesome. The other thing, yesterday, one of my favorite bands put out a new album that is Gravebloom by the Acacia Strain. And
you got the sticker right on your laptop.
Yeah, that came off the vinyl. I bought it on CD and vinyl, and I peeled that off and stuck it on there. And unfortunately, I was a little underwhelmed. I'm hoping it grows on me, but I was forced with the sad realization that it sucks when you're really into something and then you're waiting and waiting and waiting for the new one to come out, and then it's not very good. And I realized that since high school, I've had 3 favorite bands. Anytime somebody asks me, what's your favorite band, I will 100% of the time say, I have 3. AC/DC, Gwar, and the Acacia Strain. And I realized yesterday that AC/DC is from the 70s, Gwar is from the 80s, and the Acacia Strain is from the early 2000s. And unfortunately for me, even though these bands are from all these different decades, they're all going through the same drama at the same time.
Really?
Of we're losing members, we're continuing on without those members. Is this disrespectful? Should they continue going on? Should we give it a chance? Is the music good enough with these new members to to not feel guilty about them going forward? AC/DC's been through some real bad. They're down to 1 original member and then fill in people.
Yeah.
And the Acacia Strain is down to their singer and people. Their drummer's been there for 10 years, but their other they have gained and lost members in between albums coming out, which is just not a good sign for a band. No. And then to release kind of a lackluster, album with the lineup in the liner notes doesn't even say names. It just says the Acacia Strain is 4 to 5 people at any given time. And it's just man, do you even care about your band anymore? So, it's who knows who is actually playing. It might not even be the same musicians on the album,
from song to song.
Yeah. And then with Gwar, their founding member and lead singer died a couple years ago.
That's a bad one.
So, and they decided to keep going. Yeah. So it's that was 3 years ago, and they're still kind of working on an album, and you're what is Gwar then?
Because he was such a big part of the Gwar aesthetic and the Gwar sense of humor.
Yeah, he really tied in he was the main vocalist, he was the main songwriter, he was actively involved in all the character design and costume creation. Those guys still all do that themselves. So they haven't put anything out yet, but you're just kind of what is AC/DC going to be? What is Gwar going to be if all of these people that are core members are gone?
Gwar especially, I wonder if it would have just been better to cut it there.
I think it would have been, but as
we'll have to wait and see ultimately.
Yeah, the 2 things that keep me hoping are the fact that the singer they got to replace him was the old bassist, so there's still kind of this Gwar.
It's within the family.
Yeah, and Dave Brockie himself had said that I'm paraphrasing, but he had basically said there's a reason we wear costumes. He has personally said that he would like it if Gwar lived forever as a stage show.
Okay, that makes sense. They're following
original members.
They're following his wishes, and that makes sense based on what they built with Gwar.
Yeah, but as far as it's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because do you write new material? Because that's kind of weird. Or do you just stay as a stage show and play the old songs? But then you're playing songs from the 80s, 60 years later,
Gwar performing the same songs in 2100.
But anyway, that's basically it. I'm just having some real sad music times in my heart with lackluster releases and my 3 favorite bands at the same time going through breakup drama.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That is sad times.
I want to talk about Vince Staples.
Let's get into Vince Staples.
Because I was excited to learn about this. So you stated in the last episode, which I did not know, that he is your favorite rapper.
Vince Staples is my favorite rapper, and Big Fish Theory has cemented that for me.
I like that. I like that. You just go in confident.
Just go straight in. It's a masterpiece.
With both eyes closed.
Yeah.
Call back.
Hey-o.
Shout out to Gucci Mane.
Kurt, I gotta say, I'm at a loss for words.
Oh! 5 million intro. Anyway.
What were we talking about? It's really early, folks.
Yeah. Coffee is strong
This is our coffee break. Now you talk for a second while I drink coffee.
So I had never, like I said, I had never listened to Vince Staples. I went a couple of years ago. I got super into the Wu-Tang Clan, and I still am. But after you listen to the first 20 or so albums related to the Wu-Tang Clan, there's a lot that are not awesome. So as I was buying all these Wu-Tang Clan albums and listening to them, it brought up the question, like, man, these are not as good as your Liquid Swords and Cuban Links and 36 Chambers. What are some of the other greatest rap albums that I missed out on, which began like a 2-year journey of like being on Hip Hop Heads every day and like looking at their essential albums and favorite picks. And the fact that they go deep enough to be like, these are the essential albums. These are our favorites that we can't in good conscience call the best album of all time.
They're not essential.
We're just big Gucci Mane fans here. And I think I kind of strayed away from that right as Vince Staples was kind of getting talked about.
Around 2015.
And I missed... so I guess I was a little late. I just, somehow, for whatever reason, I missed any Vince Staples. Mm-hmm. And so now, this was my first experience getting into it. And, we're going to talk about each album a little bit, but I will say overall, I think each album he has released has been better than the one before it. When I listened to Summertime '06, which is his first full-length album, I liked aspects of it, but I didn't love it. And then when I listened to Big Fish Theory, I'm all out of order here.
It's all good.
When the album first came out, I saw it at Bull Moose, and I said, which is the record store I shop at, and I said, "Oh man, maybe I should pick that up because we're going to be talking about it." And it was like $12 or $13, and I was like, I'll listen to it on Spotify first. I'll wait. And then I listened to it on Spotify, and now I'm like, I'm going to buy this because I really liked it. So
I'm glad. How about that album packaging?
I don't. This is the cover.
The cover. Like, I find that so fascinating.
Yeah,
I've never seen another album like it. It's like a little fish inside of just a completely clear plastic jewel case.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
So it's like a fish in a fishbowl. I don't know. It's just so cute.
I don't even think I would have that. Probably over my head. I was like, "Hey, a fish, cool."
There's so much fish-related imagery related to this album.
So how should we start this? What's the best way to approach Vince Staples from a fan?
As a fan, I think you're totally right that he's just been getting steadily better and better. And like, if you even I wouldn't say I'm a total completionist, but I did want to hear pretty much everything this guy had done. So like, I went back, listened to the old EPs. Like, he has a Shine Cold Chain EP that still have some good songs on them. And then he has like his Hell Can Wait EP, which is the earliest thing on Spotify. But really, Summertime '06 is where it like kicks off for me. So probably just go through album by album. Sure. Right? Maybe that's a boring way to do it, but
I think that we're boring. No.
I think we're a boring podcast for boring people.
So let's start with the beginning.
Let's start with
Vince Staples was born.
What do you think overall of Summertime '06?
I think that, I say this with love as a big hip-hop fan, I cannot think of maybe one. I can think of maybe one or two double rap albums that could not be cut down into one much more solid album. So I think that Summertime '06 suffers from kind of the same. It's a little too long, but the moments where it shines very brightly. I was first taken in by Lift Me Up, which might be like one of the first.
It's the first song.
The first song. The first thing that I noticed about it, which I really liked, was there was some really great like lo-fi production with that kind of had this really groovy bass line that just kind of it rode on. It's just this crunchy, staticky bass line, and it kind of reminded me of like a Dr. Dre production meets RZA production, and instantly that kind of brought me in because I was like, okay, this is something I can really get on board with, and I think the other thing that brought me in immediately, which stayed true throughout his entire discography, is he has a very unique and talented like flow, and I think that is one of his strongest attributes.
Yeah, his flow is like constantly moving. It's he'll lock into a rhythm sometimes, but when he locks into a rhythm, you know that it's the right rhythm to have locked into.
Yep.
You know, it always interacts with the beat in really interesting ways. And when he doesn't lock into a rhythm and he's just kind of moving from rhythm to rhythm, from line to line, that's like some of the craziest stuff. Like the first track that I ever really loved off Summertime '06 was North North. Which Vince Staples has described as being like what he imagines when he was writing North North was like, you know, those sitcom intros or like those police procedural intros where you're like looking at all the characters and they all do something and then look at the camera. Yeah, that's what he imagines when he was making up North North, and the structure of that song makes so much sense. It's total like gangster nonsense.
Yeah,
you know, so much of it is I don't know. The bitch you thirsty, please grab a Sprite. It's such a strange line to open a song on.
I think one of the things that I took away from his flow and lyrical content, which I do have to say, because of his style of rapping, I can definitely take a lot more from his work if I keep looking into it. He, on a surface level, kind of reminds me of Freddie Gibbs, and like only because I am familiar with Freddie Gibbs already, I wouldn't know enough to say whether he is influenced by or anything. But he has this very strong ability to hop onto a beat, and like you said, that is the perfect rhythm for how you should rap over that beat, and it just becomes part of the rhythm of the song. And for me, that becomes very easy to like vibe to, and I find myself just like nodding my head and listening to his voice as another instrument, not really picking up what he's saying. But like Freddie Gibbs, it's kind of this like, it comes off as this just like gangsta style, but if you unwrap it and really take the time to read those lyrics and listen to what he's saying, it's much deeper than, it's very like lyrically rewarding to look into what he's saying as opposed to just vibing to it like I had been in the beginning.
He has some pretty unique he has some pretty unique metaphors for sure, and he doesn't rest on rap cliche very often.
Yep.
When he does use rap cliches, it's usually in such a way as to kind of subvert or unwind them in some interesting ways. That is mostly on Big Fish Theory, but that does happen a couple times throughout Summertime '06. Like one of the songs on Summertime '06 that I love is Jump Off the Roof.
Yep.
Which is one of the only rap songs I've ever heard from the perspective of like a crack addict. You know, you don't hear that. You usually hear it from the drug dealer side, but this perspective of Summertime '06 feels like he's trying to capture the tone of a neighborhood, of like a community, and that includes everybody in the community, even the people that aren't normally that don't normally get the spotlight in rap songs in the verses.
There is something definitely to be said about that from a writing standpoint, because when you listen to rap music, a lot of it does fall on, this is an experience I have about how great I am. And when I first noticed, like, one of the things, you know, there are a few songs I can think of, like Action Bronson's song "Hookers on the Point" tells a story from the perspective of prostitutes and a pimp rather than his own story. And then I believe the third verse is like from a customer, like a taxi driver or something, that is a customer of a hooker. I don't really know how.
John?
Sure. And then, different members of the Wu-Tang Clan will each have, in a way, they almost each have a song that's their perspective of being a kid growing up in a poor black neighborhood. So I think I really appreciate when rappers like Vince Staples and those other aforementioned rappers, they can write a compelling and interesting story. Those are kind of redundant, but story from the perspective of somebody that isn't them, and it builds the world that they're telling you about on a much wider scale than I'm really awesome, I have a lot of money, I have guns, I sell drugs. Like, I think it really, it just shows their strengths as a writer.
Yeah, I think Vince Staples reaches a lot for that kind of thing on Summertime '06. And I don't always think he's completely successful, but I think most of the time it's at least worth the effort of reaching out like that and trying to embody these other perspectives. Vince Staples was the first rapper I listened to that really kind of, and this might be a stupid or facile observation, but really kind of opened my eyes to the fact that most, if not all, rappers are playing characters. It's just a matter of how obvious those characters are. So it's like you can listen to some of the stuff that, like Gucci Mane, for instance. Gucci Mane raps about certain things, and then you can see him in interviews and see that he's a very different person from the kind of person that he raps about being.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that it's nice in an industry that is obsessed with realness. It's nice to remember that Snoop Dogg wasn't really like that. Like Dr. Dre wasn't really like that, like they come across on the albums. It's posturing. It's like almost some like WWF style posturing. Yeah. World Wildlife Fund is, of course, what I'm referring to there.
Unfortunately, so the strange thing about hip hop to me is that it is a whole, like, it is very much based on authenticity. And I find it strange that the more, if a rapper can sell you that these are real stories, I have done these things, they are reviewed as a very, authentic and real rapper. But I find that a little strange because on one hand, we'll use, Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre as examples because you just mentioned them. Like, the real story, do you want the real story? Do you want the story where Dr. Dre goes into women's bathrooms to beat up a woman or tries to throw a woman down a flight of stairs? Like, that's not, or the real Snoop Dogg may not have been this awesome pimp, but he was a Crip that probably got away with murder.
Yeah. Like, Snoop Dogg, I'm not trying to say Snoop Dogg wasn't like a scary dude. He was a scary dude, but his like stories that he tells make him always come across like a hero. And
you have these, especially in that like G-Funk era, it's all friends and kind of your love for this chaotic lifestyle. It's interesting that it's all about authenticity, but you paint these stories that show you in a way that isn't real. And on the other hand, it's, why can't rap music be like movies? Why does everything have to be real in rap music? Like, you look at great directors and it's like, Quentin Tarantino's a nerd. Martin Scorsese or Francis Ford Coppola.
Also nerds.
They make these amazing films about insights into certain aspects of life that they do not come from that. And it is, people are pretending to be these things. These are embellished to kind of give you a concentrated, this may not have really happened, but this makes you feel quickly on an emotional level what a lifestyle of that may feel like.
And that's exactly what rap music can do at its best. Even if the stories that they're telling didn't actually happen, they still tell us something true about their experiences. That's what that authenticity comes from, I think. Is that you don't... Vince Staples doesn't need to have done the stuff that he talks about in North North. He just needs to have met a person who, like, talks like that, you know, or a person who brags about that kind of thing. Or maybe people who have actually done that stuff. Or maybe Vince Staples has actually done that stuff. I don't know. I don't know him, and he doesn't really talk that much about himself.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem like the kind of dude, like, from what I've gathered, he, like, got involved in gangs for, like, a couple years when he was young. And has gotten out and now says, like, that's fucking stupid. Like, it's a terrible... Only a person who has gotten into it knows how fucking terrifying and stupid it is. That's not a direct quote. That's not even really a paraphrase. That's just the impression that I've gotten. Did
you read his recent AMA on Reddit?
I did.
I feel
fucking
like...
boss.
I don't think he answered one question in that. And I think that builds onto what you were saying of, you know, he doesn't talk much. He kind of speaks.
He talks a lot, but not about his art.
Yeah.
Yeah. He'll talk. If you want Vince Staples to come on your show and review random shit.
Yeah.
Like, I think Complex had a whole series, or GQ or something, like Vince Staples reviews everything, where they would just throw a topic at him and he would just kind of extemporaneously speak about it for a couple minutes. And they're always funny. Like, he's a hilarious dude. But he doesn't want to talk about the art. He doesn't want people to rely on his interpretation for what he's saying. He wants people to use them brains.
I always find myself wondering in the writing process for rappers. You can go on YouTube and people will analyze verses and highlight the different styles of rhymes and, you know, different colors to show you how complex a verse is. And I find myself wondering, like, do rappers, are they aware? Like, because I feel like I don't know enough about writing rhymes to know, but, like, I just wonder if when Vince Staples or MF Doom or Biggie or all of these, like, really lyrical artists start writing, are they aware of the complexity of the stories they're telling or the internal rhyme schemes, or is it just happen? Like, are they just naturally good at it?
So I've been thinking a lot about this recently. I have written some, like, rhyming poetry at different points in my life, so I have a teeny tiny little bit of perspective about what it's like to do that. But before getting into that, I want to say that I think hip-hop is probably our most vibrant, popular poetic tradition going today. And the reason that is because it was so popular for kids, for generations of kids, right? Kids growing up in inner-city neighborhoods for the last 20 years have often listened to a lot of hip-hop.
Yeah.
And just by listening to it when you're a kid, listening to it over and over again, memorizing favorite songs, and then if you have the natural inclination to start writing, you know, hip-hop songs yourself, you just absorb that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, you don't know necessarily, like, oh, okay, well, that word rhymes with that word, but then in this next line it also rhymes with this word, but then the other word in this line rhymes with the word 2 lines down, and it's this, like, complex interconnected web. You just think, like, oh, that sounded dope.
Yeah.
You know, you have this, like, there's both a poetic tradition and a critical tradition built into it, because you know when something sounds fresh. You just know. You know, you can feel it when you're listening to it. And that's, I think, why it's so vibrant. It's accessible. Anyone can sit down and write a rap, you know, and then anyone can freestyle even. Yeah. And you know what sounds cool when you're freestyling. You know when you're in a good groove.
I think one of the strongest aspects to me that I find so enjoyable about it is that there are certain things that you find... I don't want to go too far to speak about, like, something that I have not personally experienced, but there are certain things that I think you find are popular in poor areas because of their accessibility. Like, I will say, you know, like you know, in poor cities, rap music, because it's free. Anyone can write rhymes, and anybody can in their head or get a piece of paper, and, you know, what comes to mind is, I watched a interview, like, video about interview with the Jizza from the Wu-Tang Clan and ODB, and these are grown men, and you got some real insight into their childhood, because ODB, who had like no shame, was the kind of resident beatboxer, and he starts beatboxing and Jizza freestyles over it. And in that moment, I didn't see two famous rappers. I saw two kids hanging out on a street and having free entertainment. Mm-hmm. And I think that really, I think that kind of goes along the same vein of why soccer, I mean, so I was going to say why soccer is one of the most popular sports in poor countries, and then I realized it's like the most popular sport in every country that isn't America.
Yeah.
But part of the reason I
Except
think
for cricket,
for that is, what do you need to play soccer? A ball.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you need to play football? Everyone needs a uniform. Everyone needs a helmet,
pads,
a field, pads, goal. You know, it's a lot harder.
It's a decadent sport.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main appeals of soccer, is that it's so simple and affordable and easy to do. I think rap music follows that same scheme, where you literally don't need anything, and you and your friends can enjoy this experience. Mm-hmm. And I've so far gone beyond what I was trying to say with that, but
those are cool thoughts, though.
Why that was relevant
I think that's
Vince Staples.
And we should preface all this by saying we don't necessarily know 100% that this is all the case.
I played a lot of Super Nintendo growing up.
yeah. But it sounds feasible.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it does tell us something about hip hop. I've had that exact same experience. That when I used to work in like a school in like a poorer area, it was something cool to see kids like beatboxing and freestyling. Most of them were terrible.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, you would get a kid, like a 12-year-old kid, who was just an incredible rapper.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you got to keep up with this. Like, this is awesome. There's some like inborn talent that just comes from listening to a lot of it and really loving the music, that it's like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and just pound out a beat on this table, and this kid's going to rap over it, and we're going to have a good time.
Yep.
You know, it's going to be like a bonding experience.
So how do we bring this back to Summertime '06?
Vince Staples. What are some of your favorite tracks off Summertime?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to look up a track list also, so I don't forget any.
And I wasn't prepared for it because, like I said, I listened to most of these on Spotify, so I mostly just like did things while they were happening. I'm a big listen to hip hop while I do the dishes kind of guy.
That's good. Hip hop is my podcast.
I think we can put that on record as probably the whitest thing I'll ever say.
I think you'll surpass it someday.
Lift Me Up, North. Oh, I should mention too, while I'm looking at these track listings, one of my favorite things about Vince Staples in general, and I do think this is one of the strongest aspects about Summertime '06, even though I said that I felt it's a little bit too long, these songs are not long. They're a lot of short songs, and I love that, because even though I felt like the experience as a whole was kind of long, it just moves right along. Like, it's long, but, you know, this happens.
It's a marathon that feels like a sprint.
Yeah.
That's a quote from the Spin article.
Well, there you go.
That sentence is followed up by the phrase, virtually every song slaps like crazy.
Yeah. You know, I do have to mention that when I had a hard time getting in the Summertime '06, I said to myself, okay, how should I phrase this? I didn't read any reviews or listen to any reviews of his music because I wanted to go in not knowing anything to form my own opinions before I listened to other people's opinions. And after I listened to Summertime '06 and I wasn't crazy about it, I read a Pitchfork review, which gave it like an 8.8, and I was like, holy shit, like, okay, so clearly...
Pitchfork fucking loves Vince Staples.
I was going to say, clearly I need to go back into this and, you know, re-listen, because people are getting things out of it that, you know, Pitchforks apparently loves them, and I hear people praise Vince Staples all the time, so clearly I'm not getting something out of this that they are, and that inspired me to like go back, and I'm like, it's Ben's favorite rapper. I need to get an appreciation for Ben's favorite rapper. But
I appreciate that.
let me see. Jump Off the Roof was a really good song, as you mentioned. What?
I really like Senorita.
Yeah, I like that.
Senorita's good. Senorita might be the hardest gangster shit that he spits on the whole album.
And Might Be Wrong. I remember that song I was listening to, and I really liked it.
He like phones in a poem on that song.
That song was one of those ones where I was doing dishes or playing fucking Tony Hawk or whatever. While listening.
Tony Hawk has been stuck in that N64 for about a month and a half. And every time I come in, the N64 is on. And like it looks like you've just paused the game of Tony Hawk to like come greet me.
That is... Yes. I
pretty
usually
much true.
come in and I kind of start setting up, and then I'm like, I'm going to play Tony Hawk for like 10 minutes. I'm actually just beating it with every character. Like
as you do. I did the same thing on the Game Boy Advance version.
But, God damn.
Yep, and let's not get into that again. We'll have the Tony Hawk episode.
Might Be Wrong. Thank you. Might Be Wrong was one of those songs where it demanded my attention. I said, okay, what song am I listening to? Because I know this is one that I'm going to want to come back on.
There are so many great lines in that song. What's the one? Stand your ground. Blacks don't have no ground to stand on, so we stand on our words.
Yeah.
Great lines in that song.
And that's another perfect example of, I didn't even pick up on that because I have yet to unravel all of these rhymes on a lot of his work. So, I mean, I don't know... I think for the sake of time, we should move on to Prima Donna, unless there are any glaring... Like I said, where he's your favorite rapper, I unfortunately kind of had to skim these three bodies of work, so I don't have a whole lot to say.
Only so much time in the day.
Yeah.
Do you remember the trio on Summertime '06 of Get Paid, Street Punks, and Hang and Bang that comes between Might Be Wrong and CNB?
I do not remember anything that stood out about it. Because
those are some weird songs. I would suggest you go back and listen to those again, because those are like...
I think I remember the hook from Street Punks being...
You a street punk.
Yeah.
You a motherfucking street punk. Everyone knows about it. Those songs... I'm trying to think of what I want to say about those songs. Street Punks, it doesn't really fit into this category, but Get Paid and Hang and Bang both feel like rap that kids write. You know that certain type of rap where they're almost inadvertently saying really honest things about their lives, but it's filtered through this whole aesthetic of like, I'm super fucking rich and so awesome.
Yeah.
But through that aesthetic, through that window, you can see something true about them. I think Vince Staples was applying that intentionally. I think he was intentionally trying to make it sound kind of amateurish. Not in a bad way, in like a good way. There's a charm to that amateurish nature. But I would definitely suggest you go back and listen to Hang and Bang, because it literally sounds like two children could have written that song.
I will. These are definitely, as I was saying, I think I might have been saying it before we started recording, but I'm going to buy Big Fish Theory today, in fact. I would love to buy Prima Donna on vinyl, and I'll get into that in a little bit. And if you're going to have 2 out of 3, you might as well buy Summertime '06. And there's enough on that album that I can, especially from this surface level of enjoyment. I'm sure if I looked into it more, I would find it even more enjoyable. But I'd probably pick that one up too.
Just for the sake of completion, even.
Yep.
You know, it is good to have around. But like we were saying, he's gotten steadily better with each album. So let's talk Prima Donna. The Prima Donna EP.
Yes.
Released 2016.
7 tracks. I don't know if you know this, because I don't. Do you know the context for this? Why he chose to put out such a little quickly short wrapped up. It's only like 20 minutes long.
Yep,
21 minutes. Do you happen to know the context for why this exists?
Well, I know that it was inspired by the documentary Amy, about Amy Winehouse.
Yep.
And I know that Vince Staples is interested in ideas of celebrities who kind of consume themselves in a great blaze of fire. The sense I get is that he's not interested in it from any kind of morbid perspective, so much as he's interested in it from a perspective of like what the tragedy of what the world of celebrity did to these people when they could have gone on and done so much greater work. Like what would Amy Winehouse be doing today if she hadn't died?
Yeah.
You know, probably incredible stuff. She was one of the greatest singers of her generation. But also, aside from that, Summertime '06 is a big album. Like it's pretty short for a double album, but it's still like significant.
Still 2 discs.
And my understanding of Vince Staples' creative process is that he takes like 2 weeks to write a song.
Yeah.
So he's not a very fast writer. I would imagine that the pattern he's going to fall into is alternating years of like, all right, this year I'm putting out a big project. Like this year he put out Big Fish Theory. It's not as long as Summertime '06, but it's definitely still a full length. Last year he put out Prima Donna, shorter album. And before that it was Summertime '06, bigger album. So I think he's going to alternate small and big albums year by year just because of what his songwriting process is like. Again, I could be totally wrong about that. I don't know the dude. I don't have any privileged information. But that's what I was
talking to Vince earlier, and let me tell you.
I was talking to Vince. Vince has some opinions about this. That is what I would expect is the reason for why Prima Donna is such a smaller project. Plus, it's just it was the concept of the album warrants a shorter project. It's a quick idea.
Yep.
You know.
And I hadn't even noticed. You pointed out to me that it kind of plays in reverse order of you want to explain that, since it was you that
Sure.
told me about it?
I didn't notice this myself. This was something that I found out when I was reading reviews of Big Fish Theory, but Prima Donna has a concept, has a conceptual story, which becomes a little clearer if you watch the film, actually, about a rapper who is doing like typical stuff, like the song Big Time, talks about. That is a very typical sounding rap song, still filtered through that special Vince Staples filter. And if you read the album backwards, Big Time through Pimp Hand through Prima Donna, and all the way back to the beginning with War Ready and then Let It Shine, it tells a story of a big time rapper who kind of gets consumed with his own mind and starts to go a little crazy in a series of hotel rooms, gets depressed about his audience, kind of awakens as a militant, and then kills himself. So it's, it's that idea, that Amy Winehouse idea of someone becoming consumed by fame, by the issues that continue to exist in their head, even though they have this huge audience, even though they have this big platform to speak from, and engaging in self-destructive behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of the concept behind Prima Donna.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I didn't have anything else to say.
I think now knowing that, something that I find very enjoyable about it is that it's 20 minutes long, which is very short, and when we talk about the celebrities that were consumed by their fame, obviously given my interests, Old Dirty Bastard is the one that kind of he's at the forefront of my mind with that stuff. And I think where you ask those questions about people like ODB or Amy Winehouse, like, this career is really great. We are in love with this celebrity, and it ends before it was supposed to. What would have happened? Now knowing this context of this EP, the EP kind of has the same qualities to it of, this is really great, we really like this. It ends before you think it's going to, where it's only 20 minutes long, and you kind of ask yourself, why did it end this quickly? Did he say everything that needed to be said on it? What would have been what would it be like if it were longer? Would it be great throughout the whole thing? Would it get worse? And that is very interesting to me. I had not thought of that.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I think that gives me kind of a new appreciation for it.
It's a very tormented EP. Like, it does not leave you on a steady footing at the end. Like, Summertime '06 kind of wraps up.
Yeah.
Summertime '06 ends with Like It Is, where Vince Staples kind of comes out and says, like, the thesis of the album, which is, like, these people living in this community that I'm describing don't have any representation, because the people who are meant to represent them and who have the power to pull them out of this situation see them as, and he uses the racial epithet that I won't use, but that's what the representatives see them as. And that is the theme of that album. And he comes out and says it. That never really happens on Prima Donna. Prima Donna, as well as Big Fish Theory, both exist in this very ethereal place where you're really left on your own to figure out what they're about. Because there's so much inconsistency between different Vince Staples songs. Inconsistency of perspective, inconsistency of tone, often inconsistency of even like what kind of voice or what kind of voice filter he's using.
Yep.
And he really, I respect how much he leaves it up to the audience to untangle what exactly, why does he make these choices? Why is he doing the things that he does?
I thought about that a lot throughout his whole body of work, noticing that he has kind of like two cadences that he uses. Sometimes he uses kind of a lower register to rap, and then sometimes he kind of jumps on this higher pitch of delivery. And even with both of those voices, sometimes there's like a staticky filter on his voice, sometimes there isn't. And I find myself wondering, like, why? You know, like, is it just to mix it up so it sounds differently? Is it kind of similar maybe to like a Danny Brown where, you know, he has these different styles and he might rely on different ones depending on the mood he wants you to go for. And it just makes me question, like, it just adds to the depth of the music where instead of just hearing this one voice, you're like, he does these different techniques. Why is he doing this one on this verse? Like,
it gives you more to read. Just
because he thinks it sounds better? Or is it, you know, are these different characters? Am I looking into this way too much?
Well, we don't know. To give an example, let's talk about one song off Prima Donna, which I love. I love this song, "Pimp Hand."
Okay.
Are you familiar with this song? Do you like this song?
I do. I actually have something to say about this song, but I want to hear you.
The thing to go to your point of him using different voices. When he is saying the chorus, like the hook of Pimp Hand, time to show these bitches who the man, Pimp Hand strong, he uses his very high-pitched register, and he does not sound particularly strong when he's saying it. Yeah. So the words that he's saying are the kind of words a rapper might say in a hook to project strength. But when he says them the way he does, I don't pick up strength from the tone of his voice. I pick up fear. That's what I pick up a lot from Vince Staples, is this underlying sense of fear about the like situations that these characters are in. It's like, these are some scary ass situations where you have to deal with some scary ass people. Though there is something else to be said about Pimp Hand as well, about the verses.
I have never met a pimp in real life, but I believe that it's kind of a trope that pimps have a soft and high-pitched voice. I maybe part of that comes from Snoop Dogg, who was, I think, probably the first rapper that was kind of known for the pimp mentality, quote-unquote, for at least he kind of has a high-pitched voice. He raps about dressing nicely and, you know, take, like, what song is it? It might be Lottie Dottie. He talks about, like, there's a whole verse about waking up and taking a shower and putting baby powder on and, you know, wearing brand new Chucks and new socks and looking, you know, fresh. And same thing with, I mentioned before, Hookers on the Point. Action Bronson does a verse from the perspective of the pimp, and he goes to a much higher pitched voice when he delivers those rhymes. I don't know where that stereotype comes from, but I think Vince trying to use that higher register voice on Pimp Hand, it's, you know, it's the same question. Is he doing that higher pitch because there's that trope of pimps having a higher pitched voice, or did he just think it sounded good and that's the one he wanted to use at that time?
I absolutely think that he is engaging with the tradition of what the, like, stereotypical pimp voice is. I think he's engaging with it very effectively as well. I think it works really well on that song. Yeah. But the other thing about that song is, did you, like, sit down and, like, analyze the verses to that song? Because I didn't either until quite recently. Really, the last time I was listening to it, you know, the section of times that I listened to it 3 or 4 times to kind of prepare for this podcast. When he's rapping in that verse, I guess, how should I approach this? That song always concerned me a little bit, because the idea of showing bitches who the man is a concerning idea to me. right? Considering the word bitch has not really been rehabilitated in the way that some people would like it to be, or eliminated in the way that some people would like it to be. The fact that Vince was choosing to use this, misogynistically charged word made me want to really figure out why. And when he's in the verses, he does not talk about women at all. What he talks about in the first verse is OGs trying to tell young gangsters what's going on. OGs trying to tell me about the game, but it don't add up because the Crippin' not the same, is how that first verse ends. And then he goes into time to show these bitches who the man. In that case, the bitches are pretty clearly, those OGs. It's like, I gotta show these OGs what's up. And then the second verse is one of the strangest rap verses I've ever heard. And I'm not sure that I'm interpreting it correctly, but I think what it's about is robbing people who live near you in your neighborhood because they have made so much money from selling drugs, and now they are showing off.
Yeah. Right?
When the money coming in, people get to showing out, is that like little hook at the end of that, right? At the end of that verse. So in that case, when the hook comes around, it's like, okay, who are the bitches in this case? People who are ostentatiously showing off their money and therefore maybe not deserve to get robbed, but Vince is gonna rob them because he's got to pay the rent. He's food stamp flipping.
There's so two quick points I want to make about that is, in that context, is even if he's not, this is a question, I don't have an answer to this. Even if he's not talking about women in these verses, is bitch a derogatory term that you call someone that is reminiscent of them having qualities like a woman?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I do think so. So it's still definitely a problematic word.
Okay.
But there are shades to that problematic nature.
Yeah.
I think it exists on a spectrum. It's like calling a woman a bitch directly is like the worst use of the word bitch.
Sorry.
There we go. Sorry, everybody. But using the word bitch as, it's still in the song, it's still a gendered insult, and I've kind of come around to the point where I don't think it can ever be ungendered. Like, that gendered nature can never really be separated from it. But I think that he is using it in an interesting enough way to make it worth using it. Mm-hmm. But I'm not totally sure, and I'm open to any kind of conflicting perspectives on that, because this is a very important discussion in rap music that people are having right now.
The other little point that I find reminiscent of that is, I don't know the exact line, but there is an MF Doom line that that makes me think of, that I like a lot, and I don't remember the exact line, but it is similar to, I try to act broke, jealousy is the number one killer among black folk. And I think that is an interesting, Vince Staples in my mind adds to that, of you may be living this particular lifestyle, but you have to be careful in these communities, because even the people that are close to you in your community will turn on you if you start to act too differently from what is kind of like expected or accepted.
When you're kind of showing anything off to a large group of people where you don't know everyone, like if you're just showing your friends and people you know and trust, then like you're not going to get robbed. Like it's not like a Mad Max style wasteland in the inner cities. But if
they're not fiends from Fallout.
right. They're not ghouls. Though ghouls are pretty civilized as well. Yeah. Jesus, I don't want to piss off
any ghouls that are listening to the show.
Any ghouls, don't at me, ghouls.
I don't think you're all feral.
I know, hashtag not all ghouls. Hashtag not your shield.
All ghouls matter. That is an inappropriate joke that I should not have made.
This is terrible. We'll get to the Black Lives Matter stuff on Big Fish Theory. Oh God, what was I saying? But if you're in any group of people, if you're kind of ostentatiously showing off wealth to a group of people where you know some of them and don't know some of them, there's always a chance someone's going to get an idea in their head. There might be someone who really needs some extra cash and doesn't know how else to get it. Yeah. They're like, having trouble paying the rent that month or something, and they're gonna go take some of your shit to pay that money.
Yep.
God, this is so racist.
I know. We just move on.
Hopefully it's not actually racist and we're just being like overcautious.
Before we dig too deep and say something racist unintentionally.
If we have said anything racist, please let us know. We want to have an honest conversation about this shit.
We will apologize.
We recognize that we may have made some broad generalizations, or it may have sounded like we were making broad generalizations. If so, we are sorry. I feel like we both kind of recognize implicitly that we don't have much direct experience, any.
I think it comes with the territory
of this stuff.
Listening to something that comes from an area that you have such. I'm gonna drop the P word. I have the privilege of looking at rap music like it's a movie.
Exactly. That's something Vince Staples talks about a lot. In fact, I think that's why Big Fish Theory is the way it is, because he has this recurring motif. Did you watch the Senorita video by any chance?
No.
The Senorita video is this, like, it's kind of like what we were just talking about. It's like a ghetto hellscape for most of it, right? It's people shooting each other. It's a parade of people walking down the street getting shot down by an invisible gunman throughout the video. Vince Staples like stands on the back of a truck and raps at one point with a really scared looking security guard standing in front of him. It's a great video. I would recommend it. But at the end, the camera pulls back from the ghetto through a glass screen, and there's like a nice 1950s American family sitting there watching all this stuff happen.
I'm that family.
Exactly. We are that family, and it is our privilege to be that family and to be able to experience this music without ever having had to have the kind of terrifying like childhood and youth and adolescent and adult experiences that come with living in a neighborhood that has a higher crime rate than another neighborhood, or a neighborhood that has a higher concentration of poor people than other neighborhoods, or whatever socio-political, economic, cultural values that, like, not cultural values. Why did I say cultural values? The elements of culture that contribute to a place being a little more dangerous than another place. And we also have to acknowledge that, like, the political reality of the United States is in large part created by white people, and we have a part in that. There is more that we could be doing to help people, like us personally.
Yeah.
You know, so we recognize all of this stuff, but it's still really interesting to talk about this music. And a lot of these things I would not have thought about or like have the knowledge of without listening to rap music and being able to contextualize it. So I don't always get stuff right, but I feel like I feel like listening to it puts me on a track. It's better for me to listen to it and have to face my own implicit biases and my own like weird racist shit that is just buried in my psyche that I can dig up by interacting with black art and with black people. That it's better than just saying like, oh, I don't want anything to do with this. I don't know anything about this. I don't want to fuck up. I don't want to make an ass of myself. So I'm just not going to deal with any of it. I would rather make an ass of myself and eventually be a better person.
Learn something from it.
Than step away and try never to fuck up anything ever.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. Anyway, Prima Donna. What are some of your favorite? Did you have anything else generally to say about Prima Donna, or do we want to like get into favorite tracks?
I have two quick things to say, and maybe it ties into favorite tracks. One, the song "Smile." Okay, I listen to all these on Spotify. In parentheses, Spotify free. Mm-hmm. I do not pay to have it free of ads. Every time, I say every time. The first 2 or 3 times I listened to Prima Donna, I probably listened to this one. I listened to this one the most because it's the shortest and I really liked it. So it was like, I listened to this like probably 6 times. The first 2 or 3 times I listened to it, I thought Smile was an ad that comes on because it sounds like a fucking Jack White song. It's just like this, like, to me, this just like generic like rock guitar.
Then there's like a solo towards the end.
And it just doesn't when it comes on. I was like, oh, here's the next Home Depot commercial, and I was like, oh wait, no, that's Vince Staples. Like, and the other thing, I don't know why I mentioned that. I just thought it happened more than once where I did not think that was part of the album. The other thing about the album, and kind of Vince Staples as a whole. After I listened to his music, I like I said, I read some reviews. I listened to some reviews. One of those reviews was from Anthony Fantano at the Needle Drop, his review of Big Fish Theory, and he says something along the lines of, one of Vince's biggest flaws is his hooks. He's not great at hooks or choruses, and instead of acknowledging I'm not great at hooks and choruses, I should reach out to all these people that are dying to work with me to give me some great hooks and choruses. I'm just going to muddle through it and just kind of do, like, I wouldn't say it draws inspiration from Gucci Mane. It just reminds me of Gucci Mane, where it's like, so just say the name of the song 4 times and that's your chorus. But I disagree with that, because I really like those types of choruses. That's one of the things I like about Gucci Mane, is the hypnotic repetition, like even cutting the line short to make it fit the amount of paragraphs that will fit on this beat. I think I'm glad that Vince doesn't reach out to steal the joke line from, random reference, Michael Bolton on the Lonely Island song that he did. I don't need a big sexy hook on every song. Sometimes I really like the solo approach of the solo artist, saying like, this is me. I might not be as equally good at every aspect of this, but this is what you're gonna get. And I really like that, because there are very different ways to approach hooks and choruses in rap music, and you have everything from like your Wu-Tang Clan, Wu-Tang is Forever, where there are no hooks. There just are 4 bars of just the beat, and then another guy jumps onto the beat, to guys, as an example might be like Killer Mike, where not a strong singer. Every song on this album, I'm gonna pay somebody to sing a hook for me, because I just can't sing. And I really like Vince Staples' approach, where it might not be strong singing, but they're catchy. War Ready and Pimp Hand are catchy hooks, and that's good enough for me. I don't care that they might not be pretty, Yeah,
the thing I love about Vince Staples' hooks is that they capture. I don't really like hooks that are like, oh, this is just a nice little tune to kind of think about while I'm between verses. I like a hook that acts as kind of the home rhythm of the song. Like when your hook is often going to be a repeated rhythm, you're not going to have that much variety in it. And then your verses are where you take that home rhythm and you develop off it and you go new places with it. I think Vince Staples does that really well. So yeah, I agree with you that I do not miss the hooks.
Okay, it's fine.
Yeah, the door just opened.
The door just opened to my studio. I wasn't sure if it was air or if my girlfriend needed something, but we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
I'm not gonna edit this out.
Right.
Sorry.
No,
everyone.
You shouldn't. Let's use this as a transition. What else did you have about Prima Donna? Did you say you had 2 things?
I think I said I had 2 things, and then I said like 4 things.
Okay.
But the last thing, the 5th thing of these 2 things is that I said earlier I would love to have this on vinyl, and now I will elaborate on that now that we've talked about it. I saw that they are unavailable to buy from the record store that I shop at, but this did come out on a 7-inch vinyl, and I would absolutely love to own it, just because I think the context of the album and what it contains is perfect for vinyl. It's only 20 minutes long. It's an experience. You can sit down and quickly enjoy this thing and then think about it a lot. I don't want to go too far, but my initial reaction is this is a novella of an album. This is The Old Man and the Sea or Animal Farm, or these are quick, short stories that resonate deeply, and you can read them or listen to them over and over again. And I think where it is such a strong musical experience, I would love to have it on vinyl, because I mostly buy things on vinyl that I consider to be musical experiences, where you have to you're sitting down with headphones, you are listening to an album, not doing it passively while you do dishes or drive around. And I think this album is probably best experienced like that. I think that if this came out on a 7-inch, that would be like a strong record store day release, where you do kind of tend to see more of those gimmicky, hey, it's kind of our, audiophile holiday. Like, we're going to buy this because, it's either a great album that you couldn't get on vinyl or a weird vinyl experience. And I think this shoots right in the middle of both. I think it is a great musical experience that is enhanced probably by listening to it on vinyl. That's probably my last thing I have about Prima Donna.
I agree about it being like a self-contained experience. And I would recommend that you watch the film that Vince Staples directed. It's just up on YouTube. In many ways, the EP acts as a soundtrack to the film. I think there might be like 1 or 2 songs that appear in their entirety, but it's mostly snippets. And it's sometimes...
What is it called?
It's called Prima Donna.
Oh.
Yeah, if you just search for Prima Donna on YouTube and Vince Staples, then it should pop up. It's like 10 minutes long, so most of the songs, you use about half of it.
Yeah.
But it's really disorienting in some ways. He actually mentions it on Big Fish Theory. What's the, like, Prima Donna had them like, wow, Hitchcock in my modern day, where the fuck is my VMA?
Yeah. Vince.
Vince Staples is... So yeah, Prima Donna, great album.
Also, I don't have the mental capacity to go back and think about this, but now I do wonder, I feel like this may have, if I looked at some of my favorite albums from last year, I think this could have slipped into it, if not at the very least been this is very great, but I don't know if it's big enough, long enough to be considered one of my favorites. But I definitely wish I had taken more out of that last year.
I think on my list it ended up being like number 2 or number 3 after Schoolboy Q and maybe after Coloring Book by chance. I think it's absolutely my number 1 at this point, having listened to it more and absorbed it more and watched the film more and like gotten the whole experience and come to understand what it represents and what it's saying. It's probably my number 1 of 2016.
Okay. So,
let's
move on to Big Fish Theory.
Big Fish Theory, the new one. It's only been out a scant week and a half-ish.
And because we're so far behind recording, it will be about that time when the episode goes up.
Yep.
I worked like 60 hours this week, and Ben was on vacation, so we were just
what were you doing for work?
I'm just working as much as I can at my various jobs to help fund my wedding that's coming up, and my ridiculous amount of spending I do at record stores.
Yeah.
I said to myself, okay, I have to have all this money for my wedding coming up. Do I stop eating fast food and buying music, or do I just work twice as much to be able to have both? And
I can have it all.
It landed on working twice as much to have both, because I can't stop buying music. And Goosebumps books, apparently, because I bought like 20 in the past couple weeks.
Oh, God.
So, I will say, initial thoughts on Big Fish Theory, I really liked it. Especially, which might not be the main thing that people enjoy about Vince Staples, I don't know, the production.
Holy shit, dude.
I loved the production. It felt... So, parts of it felt so much more well-rounded and felt like an album than his previous work. And some of it was so minimalist and atmospheric that even though there was less production, it felt like more production. It felt so like it was intentionally... I don't want to say shallow. It was intentionally bare to emphasize something.
Yeah, so much thought has gone into the production on this album. Like, clearly, just from listening to it, you can tell.
I really liked a lot of the electronic sounds, and that's something that's kind of, I have not been following, this trend, but I've seen it as looking back on hip hop, that a lot of artists are now resorting to the electronic production rather than the classic sampling previous recordings. And I'm a big fan of it. I really like both, but I was really happy to see all the electronic sounds in the very new, fresh sounds. Some
really brutal sounds on this album too. Like Prima Donna is also a very electronic album. Like I believe Prima Donna was produced mostly by a dubstep guy.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so. James something. I can't remember what his name is. But Big Fish Theory, so Prima Donna has the kind of smooth party sounds of a dance, club dubstep kind of record. Big Fish Theory also has dance elements to it, but it's a much rougher, older, more raw version of that dance music that eventually evolved into dubstep. I'm thinking specifically of Yeah Right, which is almost a hard song to listen to at times because of the sharpness of the cymbals and I don't think I've found a set of speakers that can properly play the bass on Yeah Right. It always rattles for me.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at the track listing to pull out some. Unfortunately, I only listened to this album once, but shining moments for me, I guess. I really loved Crabs in a Bucket, the intro track. I was excited when that song came on because, like I said, I enjoyed Summertime '06, but it was mostly shining moments rather than the whole thing. I liked Prima Donna, but it was very short. And then when I listened to this first track, I said, okay, this is going to be an album that I will probably like a lot. It would be very strange if the intro were the one song that worked really well and I don't like the rest of it. I really liked that. I really liked Big Fish.
Yeah, Big Fish. That's Juicy J on the hook, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah, I was up late night balling, counting up hundreds by the thousands. A little bit of double meaning in there.
Love that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it dead into the ground because we talked about it on the last episode, but I've been listening to Drop Top Wop a lot the past week, and I almost wish I had the time to do that the week before, because I've taken so much more out of that album.
Oh, yeah.
Listening to it again. And there are a lot of things I've noticed that double meanings from some of the lines in that, but that's in the past.
Yeah.
745?
Edit it back into the old episode. Yeah, 745, super cool. It's one of those 3 kind of love songs that come before the big tonal change halfway through the album. 745 is great. There are it starts with some really good K-Dot references. Some really good Kendrick shit that All My Life is so... I don't know if anybody used that cadence before Kendrick did with his All My Life I Want Money and Power.
Yep.
So yeah, I love hearing that. And there are quite a few Kendrick references in some of the surrounding songs. Love Can Be ends with a Kendrick reference. This Dick Ain't Free is how that song, how the one rap verse on that song ends. But yeah, 745, so good.
And what the other strongest one? I was playing Tony Hawk and listening to this album, and when Rain Come Down came on, I said to myself, I didn't know the name of the song, but I said, I'll be pissed if this isn't the last song on the album, because it is such a great ending, closer, and it's a great song. And then I like that it's almost 5 minutes long, which is long for Vince Staples' song, and I think it has that last track epic feel to it. It's kind of this feels like the last track. It's the longest. It's supposed to make you have these feelings that resonate through the length of the song as it ends the album. And for that reason, I said, this better be the last song, because this is going to end on a really nice note. And it did. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. That's song where he repeats the verse. He repeats the first verse. He has that verse, and then it repeats, and then he has another verse.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. His verse about I'm the blood on the leaves, I'm the nose on the sphinx. And that is a good verse to repeat, because having like looked into the lyrics, that verse is insanely dense with references. Let me get into that a little bit, because I did write down some specific instances of it. Vince Staples, one of the things I love about Vince Staples is that he is so out there with the things he compares himself to. Like that's kind of a rap trope, right? Is like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm like this, I'm like that. Here's what I do, here's what I don't do, here's what I like to do, stuff like that. When Vince Staples compares himself to people, it's Leonardo da Vinci. He compares himself to James Joyce at one point on Prima Donna on the song Loco. I write that James Joyce don't need the Rolls Royce is a good line from that song. And on Rain Come Down, on the verse that he repeats, he compares himself to the blood on the leaves, right? Which is a reference to why can't I remember her name? It's a song by this woman. It's the Strange Fruit. Are you familiar with that song?
No.
It's about lynchings. Strange fruit hanging from the trees, and it refers to blood on the leaves. It's a really great song, like one of the classics of black music in America. So he compares himself to the blood on the leaves. He compares himself to the nose on the Sphinx.
I love that.
Comparing himself to the nose on the Sphinx.
Yeah.
Are you? Yeah.
Well, very little, but I think that in that one line of comparison, you have so many aspects to draw from. You're comparing yourself to royalty. Mm-hmm. You're comparing yourself to something huge and grand. Mm-hmm. You're comparing yourself to kind of a mystery.
Like, where'd the nose go?
Yeah, where'd the nose go? You're saying that everybody knows what I am and everybody can picture me in their head, mm-hmm. but you don't know what the whole thing looks like.
Yeah.
You're seeing part of it, and you might be having a misunderstanding of what you're seeing.
This was something that I learned from looking at the annotations on Genius, which I'm not usually that big of a fan of, but this was a case where it really helped me. Are you familiar with like the theory surrounding the nose on the Sphinx?
No. I know that Aladdin and Jasmine broke it off in their magic carpet ride.
That is historically accurate. The actual reason some people say why it broke off is because Egyptians broke it off, thousands of years ago, when the Sphinx was already thousands of years old. They broke the nose off because the nose on the Sphinx made it look too black.
Oh.
That's one theory for what the nose on the Sphinx might have looked like, what the nose on the Sphinx might have added to the overall look of the Sphinx. So Vince Staples saying that he is the blood on the leaves and the nose on the Sphinx is such a fascinatingly dense set of illusions that tells you so much about where he's coming from and where he would like to situate himself in the history of music and the history of like art and world culture. It's a really interesting way of bragging, which Vince Staples does a lot, brags in really interesting ways. But of the many interesting ways in which he brags, I think those are two of the most interesting. Later on in that same verse, he says he calls himself the Louis Bourgeois. He calls himself Louis Bourgeois. Do you know who Louis Bourgeois was?
No.
He was like I think 16th or 17th century French composer who is known for having written some of the most beautiful melodies ever written. Louis Bourgeois on the beat is what he calls himself. So again, what other rapper would compare himself to these people and ideas?
That's a reference for me. That's what I'm saying. No, I don't know who he is, but
yeah. In other songs, even if I'm just talking about all the interesting things that he compares himself to, on the song Homage, where he steals the Rick Ross hook, won't hold me back. These hoes won't hold me back. These hoes won't hold me back. That bit. That's a Rick Ross bit. And he says that he is in Richard Prince mode in that song. Do you know who Richard Prince is?
I do not.
I didn't either until I fucking looked it up. Richard Prince was a photographer in the, I think, 60s who helped pioneer the photographical technique. That was a dumb way to say that. He helped pioneer the technique of rephotography. So what Richard Prince would do is find advertisements and then re-photograph the pictures used in the advertisements and then use those. Those were his art.
Oh.
And what he said he liked to do was he liked to find the most outlandish, most bizarre things in photography in advertisements and then photograph them in such a way that makes them look even more outlandish, to kind of call out the, like, this is a weird thing that nobody talks about how fucking weird it is. And you can kind of see Vince Staples doing that same thing in his music. He's appropriating a lot of tropes and patterns and subject matter that other rappers use, but he is using it in a way that makes it obvious how strange it is to talk about this stuff. Man, he's my favorite rapper.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. What else about Big Fish Theory?
I don't know. Like, unfortunately, I only listened to it once, and aside from some standout tracks, I definitely did not get the chance to unravel much of that, especially on a level, like you just did a little bit.
I've listened to it like a dozen times.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I did on our vacation. On the drive back, I was just sit in the back with headphones in, listen to Big Fish Theory over
How
and over.
great is it when you have those albums that as soon as it's over, you're like, play.
All right, right back into the fray. Once again, unto the breach. Let's get into it.
I think that it's showing his strength as an artist. I think it's his best project yet, and I think that the production is a lot better. I think that he is finding his groove, but I think it may be more appropriate to say that he has found his groove. He's doing what he's good at now. And overall, I just found it to be a very enjoyable listen. And it's definitely, I think when I open back up my document of albums that I've checked out that came out this year, I think I'm going to see through the rest of the year that it's going to slide up. It's going to be one of those. Last year, the album "You Will Never Be One of Us" by Nails, I listened to it and I really liked it, and I think I initially had it at like number 8 on my top 10 list, and it kind of it just crept one by one. The more I listened to it throughout the year, it just crept up, and I believe it ended up being number 2.
Yeah, I think so. It was way up there.
And like we said over and over again, those top 3 or 4, those are basically interchangeable.
Yeah, that's a tie. It's
on
like
your mood.
These are ones that are like gonna stick with me. Yeah. These are the ones that I'm gonna keep listening to.
My number 1 ended up being the new Danny Brown album, and it's like, how do you compare a 20-minute noise grind, whatever you want to call it? It's probably neither noise nor grind.
There's definitely grind influence on that.
There will be like metalheads that are like, idiot.
Fucking idiot. That's tech death bath metal. Metal for listening to in the bath, you dummy.
How do you compare that to a Atrocity Exhibition, but without saying like, oh, it's on level, both of these are my favorite from last year?
Yeah. Speaking of Atrocity Exhibition, this album has been getting a lot of comparisons to Atrocity Exhibition.
I'm telling you, man.
In the criticism, I've really got to listen to Atrocity Exhibition more.
Rap music it's getting ready for its sad times phase.
Oh yeah. Like, all these rappers are starting to really come out with the fact that like, nah, this shit's not fun.
Yeah.
This like being famous sucks.
This album made me acknowledge, or maybe not this album, but Vince Staples in general made me acknowledge, okay, I need to give Earl Sweatshirt a few more listens.
Shit. I love Earl Sweatshirt.
See, everybody in 2016 was saying that I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside was one of the best hip hop albums of that year, of the 2015. And I didn't get it. I still don't get it. And it's one of those things where, kind of like with the first time I listened to Prima Donna, I'm like, or Summertime '06 as well, I'm like, clearly I'm not picking up on something that other people are picking up on. And now, Danny Brown, Earl Sweatshirt, Vince Staples, they're kind of having these dark and moody tones that I need to elaborate on more.
Yeah.
To see what the hype is about.
Yeah. Another thing about Big Fish Theory that I want to get out there is I love how many of these songs have women's voices on them.
Yeah.
And not in a way that's like, all right, she delivers the hook and then like we rap. It's way more complicated and way more interconnected than that. Like, I don't know if you noticed, Kilo Kish is a pretty regular collaborator with Vince. She's on a couple songs on Summertime '06, I think. She's on one of the best songs on Prima Donna. She's on Loco. She's the one that does the "It's okay, hey Vince, it's me. Things are going pretty great now, and this ain't what you need." That whole bit. And she's on like 4 or 5 songs on Big Fish Theory, and it actually raps on one of them, which is really cool. And then there's an artist named Kuka, who does the bridge on Yeah Right. The bridge between the beginning, which is just Vince Staples rapping his two, like, his, like, is your house big? Is your car nice? Is your girl fine? Fuck her all night? That great just complete tear down of rap tropes. Like, he isolates that to one verse and just perfectly executed. And then the Pretty Woman section as well, executing like a deconstruction of the ways in which the tropes that men talk about in rap music, also really even indirectly, the expectation of being rich and being famous and portraying yourself in this way, that expectation is ultimately really destructive to women in the rap community as well.
I find that, well, in general, women are not represented on the same level that men are represented in hip-hop. And sometimes I get... You'll get these verses by a woman usually as a feature in my experience, because there aren't a whole lot of like solo women rappers that are kind of
there aren't a lot that are famous. There was one who came out of New York like last year. There's one named No Name who I've been listening to a lot recently due to my wife recommending her, but that makes me sound really sexist. I only listen to women rappers if my wife tells me about them. But No Name is really great. She has an album called Telephone. But it's one of those things where you have to seek it out. Women don't get put in front of you when you're listening to hip-hop and watching hip-hop videos except as sexual objects in fucking Migos videos. You know, and that's a miserable way to represent half of the human race.
I think there are a few verses that have come by throughout the years where I'll hear a female verse, and I'm like rocking in my chair and realizing my voice is probably fading in and out as I wave by my microphone.
Yeah, I think that women are really underrepresented.
But I love getting that perspective of when I do get a great verse that you wouldn't normally hear. And there are certain albums, I can't remember the song names, but I mean, like, there are women represented to some extent on Big Fish Theory. There's a song on I Pledge Allegiance to the Grind, Part 2. I think that song is called I'm the Shit, where one of the best verses on the whole album is by a woman. And she is also playing into these rap tropes, but, like, she's the boss, Like, and I really like both sides of it, and I don't know on a deeper level if one is better for rap music than the other one, mostly because I'm not a woman, so I can't say what's better. But
yeah, like, we are two dudes sitting, white dudes sitting here talking about women in hip-hop.
And so I wonder, like, what I like hearing both, and I wonder kind of what is better, or if they're both the same. Like, is it better for women to jump onto these tropes and say, no, I'm a part of this too. Like, I love hip hop. Like, you think that I'm a bitch. Well, I'm playing you, like, and I also love when it's the female role is kind of elaborated on and you learn more about it on a real level too. I'm not, but I can't. If I say much more, I'm going to start saying things that I have no bearing or right to say. So
I think the best thing overall, and what we really should keep in mind when we're talking about women in hip hop, is that ultimately what we just need is more women.
Yeah.
More female voices, more women's voices in hip hop.
Yeah.
That's because we cannot tell women how to best represent themselves in hip hop. We just gotta encourage more and more. And like that's why I really wanted to say, like, yeah, Vince, this Big Fish Theory album has women's voices all over it. Yeah. And it's awesome. It's great. It adds a new perspective. It adds new layers. It hopefully will show people, like, you should seek out. Good. Wow, that word came out really bad. You should seek out women to put on your rap albums, because it's worthwhile to have that perspective.
It adds to it, and as a listener, from my perspective, which for once I can speak to my perspective, it does. There are certain aspects of hip hop that don't represent, women very well, and even though I like hip hop, I don't agree with all those, aspects of it. So, the whole, to sum it up in a cheesy way, the, like, money over bitches, all, pimp hand strong, all that stuff. I don't buy into that in my personal life. So
Really?
No, strangely enough.
Yeah, I didn't know that about you.
Strangely enough, I like women. I don't like anybody, but I dislike everybody equally. And I want more of that aspect to it, the realness, and I want to see where it takes it, because that interests me. Sorry.
No, sorry. Just to keep talking about women, which we thought that we were gonna try to wrap that up and not say anything stupid. I'm gonna go ahead and possibly say something stupid. Good,
because I have something possibly stupid after that.
Okay, good. Let's see if we can out-stupid each other. One of the things I like about Big Fish Theory, again, in addition to having many women's voices on it, it seems like Vince Staples is interested in isolating why so many rap songs say bad things about women. And the impression that I get from Big Fish Theory is that when a rapper is talking shit about women and acting very confident about his status with women, it's really reflective of not feeling very confident about his status with women. It's just that lack of confidence, when it gets filtered through the, like, hyper confident, hyper boastful filter of hip hop, comes out as like, yeah, money over bitches, right? Got to keep my pimp hand strong, because really I'm scared about how bad women can hurt me.
Yeah.
Right. I'm worried about that. That comes out in the songs as being, like, pretty offensive and misogynist, but at its core, these rappers who say bad things like that are not necessarily misogynist in their heart. They're saying misogynist things because of how worried they are about the relationships that they have with women. What's the stupid thing you were going to say?
As far as women in hip hop, or the perception of women in hip hop, like I said, I've been listening to a lot of Drop Top WAP this week, and I find one of the things that I like about Gucci Mane is that he like you said, the character that he portrays on his albums doesn't appear to be a literal translation of Gucci Mane in real life. Mm-hmm. And I think that in a lot of ways, for me personally anyway, Gucci Mane is like the James Bond of hip hop. Like, he is just the pinnacle of every man wants to be Gucci Mane. Every woman wants to be with Gucci Mane. Uh-huh. And when I first listened to, his stuff, that's just one of those things where you have to say, I like this music. I like Gucci Mane as an artist, but he's definitely saying things that I do not agree with in my personal life. And you have to ask that question: am I doing, on any level, am I doing any harm by enjoying this music, And one of the songs on Drop Top WAP, Helpless, when I first listened to it, I really loved that song because it's catchy, and looking at him like that James Bond character that like fits perfectly. And, you know, I like one of the first lines in that song, and I kind of started to second guess my love of that song, because it's, you know, like the first line is like, when she puts that pussy on me, I feel helpless. And it's just like this, it's all about a woman, and I was like, oh, is this a little too, like, you know, I don't know if I should enjoy this as much as I do. But the more I listen to it, I've just completely cemented my first opinion, where, and this is the dumb thing I'm going to say, because maybe I'm completely being a dick and totally wrong, but I almost feel like the song Helpless is empowering towards men and women, because I think it makes these two characters that are so infatuated with each other and so obsessed with each other that the man and the woman are both helpless towards their addiction towards each other. And I think that if, in my opinion right now, which could change, I think that is an image in hip hop that I think is very interesting. Like, you know, I might say these things about women that do not sound great, but I'm addicted to this person. I need this person. And I'm doing all these things that I normally wouldn't do because of this person. And she's doing all these things that might make her seem weak. You know, like she gets jealous when I'm with other women. She's texting me, when am I going to come home? It kind of shows this weakness, but paired with Gucci Mane's helplessness towards her, it just kind of shows this, like, you know, in the song, you know, he's rich, she is already rich, they're both rich together, they're both in good shape, they both live this lifestyle, and they have all these things, and now that they have each other, they both bring the same things to the table, but now they're both weaker because of their dependency on each other. And I think, as I had gone back and forth with how I feel about this song as of right now, and I think it's the final feeling, I feel locked into that. Like, that is a great, empowering song for both genders.
Yeah, it's I remember that song. That song stuck out to me because there are some really weird lines in that song. I want that pussy to myself. I'm selfish.
Yeah, and you know, that's a great example too, because on one hand, it kind of, I can see that as people interpreting that. I almost said interpretating.
Interpolating.
And I'm glad that I called myself out on it. I can see people interpreting that as owning this person, but I can
owning
also,
this person's pussy.
Yeah. But I can also see it as being so, like, this pussy is so great. Pardon my delivery of this. Is so
this is
great.
This is gonna get clipped out, and you're never gonna be able to run for president.
That, like, other people, like, deserve to know this person, but I want it for myself because I'm so selfish. It's so amazing, this person. I say, you know, he literally says pussy.
Pussy, yes.
Like
every time Curtis just said person, just put pussy
I like
in
to
there.
interpret it as, this person is so amazing, the whole world, it's a disservice that other people don't get to know it, but I want it for me because it's amazing. Like, and he literally says pussy.
Yeah.
But
what he means is woman.
There's
oh god.
There's also the gem, like, I'm helpless. Is there pussy rehab? Please tell me. And I don't know how to feel about it at the end of the day, but I think I've come to the line where I think this is, on some level, empowering and not great for both genders on this. Like,
I do think that representation is very important, but I don't think that representation is the be all and end all of important things. I think that it's also important to keep in mind that, like, yes, Gucci Mane is literally talking about this woman's pussy as though he owns it and is addicted to it. But on the other hand, the, like, the core emotion that he's trying to convey with that song is a universal human emotion of, like, loving someone so much, or that like early relationship infatuation that you get. That's what that song is about, right? And you could totally listen to those lyrics and assume the worst.
What a fucking dick.
Holy shit,
Like...
Gucci Mane needs to go back to prison. Right, but
I'm just waiting to be able to break out my free Gucci shirt again, so
I do think it's important when interpreting hip hop to definitely take it literally and definitely talk about the representation, but also get back to those core emotions that they're trying to convey, and take at some level, take the lyrics at good faith and assume the best of the rappers and singers, and assume like, all right, they're saying this in an odd way, but what are they really getting at?
Yeah.
What are they communicating? Can I relate to this? And in that case, yeah, you know, you get infatuated with someone. You just love that pussy so much.
I think what I want to take from it is that I don't mind a little storytelling. I don't need a rapper. You know, I don't listen to 50 Cent, but I think in a lot of ways getting shot 9 times was the best thing that ever happened to that guy. Like, because he built a career off of
vitamin water.
Bulletproof. I'm so tough
Yeah.
that I was shot 9 times and I'm still doing the same thing. I don't need every rapper to be 100% authentic, and I'm willing to give artists good faith on, I know what you're saying does not sound great, but this is how I take it as what you're trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
All I want is for men and women to both do it. I think that is what I don't want the lyrical content to change. I mean, I'm not saying it shouldn't or it could not, but I like hip hop. I just want men and women to contribute to that. And there are, you know, a handful of songs where I can point to a female rapper doing that, and I say, this is great. You know, these, you know, even way back, Where the Cash At by Currency and Lil Wayne has the third verse is, I don't remember her name. She's the artist that's beefing with, is it Kesha or Nicki Minaj? I think Nicki Minaj is beefing with somebody, and it's her. She's a little lesser known, I think. But anyway, that's the main point of that, which kind of got away from Big Fish Theory. But
speaking of 50 Cent, though, there's a pretty good 50 Cent reference buried on Big Fish Theory.
Is there?
Later on. Yeah, it's in Rain Come Down. It's the very end of the song. I don't even know if it's really a fucking In the Club reference, but he does say, "In the club, what you drinking need a buzz," which I assume, you know, that's so close to the ideas that 50 Cent is getting at on his opus, on his magnum opus, In the Club. And Vince follows that lineup with, I'm paraphrasing, but like, don't you wonder what it feels like to be in love? Yeah. So, like, putting those two ideas right next to each other, like referring to this horrifically misogynist 50 Cent song, right? I mean, you've listened to In the Club.
I actually haven't.
You haven't listened to In the Club?
I think I may have mentioned this before. 50 Cent comes from my least favorite era of hip hop.
It's the worst era.
The early 2000s. I don't like Eminem. I don't like 50 Cent. Who else is from that? I'm not even a huge Kanye fan. Like, I don't know if that's from the same
mid to late, really the whole 2000s. Kanye kind of changed hip hop with what he was doing.
There was actually, as I was going to make a comparison in our Teenage Emotions and Drop Top WAP conversation, I forgot to. There's a Complex article that shows as the difference as the gangsta early 2000s hip hop was reaching its pinnacle. A 50 Cent album came out on the same day that one of Kanye's first albums came out, and nobody knew what to expect of the Kanye album, and everybody expected to love the new 50 Cent album, and they refer in that album as that day is the day that gangsta rap died, because Kanye blew up and 50 Cent kind of faded.
Yeah, there's a very real transition that you can look back to around that time period, and it's a transition that has continued to flourish, and hip hop has just been moving and grooving since then. Like, we are so far beyond, at this point, we're so far beyond what Kanye was doing on his early albums. Yeah, I think partly because Kanye has helped us move beyond that.
He asked the question, how big can a white t-shirt get? And then, 50 Cent asked that question, and then Kanye said, I'm going to wear a shirt that fits me in a backpack. Like, a collared shirt. I do think, though, that 50 Cent is, like, I do find him kind of personally fascinating, because he, like I said, getting shot 9 times was the best thing that ever happened to him, and you have these moments that happen with 50 Cent in his real life where I watched a Hot Ones episode where there was a TV show host that had interviewed him and was talking about his interview, and part of the interview process is they open it up to the crowd, and a totally unscripted, unplanned, one of the audience members asked, like, 50 Cent, how much money do you have on you right now? And he pulled $10,000 out of his pocket. Like, completely, he was just walking around with $10,000 in his pocket, completely unplanned, unscripted. Yeah. And, the host said it was one of the best unplanned moments that ever happened on the show. A couple of years later, 50 Cent files for bankruptcy. And he kind of admits that a lot of the money you see on his Instagram and stuff is fake. A lot of it is show. And I think that kind of is a little, after it faded out, it kind of brought to the forefront that, not all this gangster rap stuff is completely real. There's a lot of it's made up, and maybe we want, quote unquote, less exciting authenticity than fake.
So this is a great point, because this is something, did you pick up on any of that from Vince Staples?
No.
Vince Staples, that is one of his big points that he pushes on. That's one of his main points, beyond like the social justice points that he's pushing on. Within the rap community, you're out of Polar. Oh God, we're in the desert now.
We gotta wrap this up.
We gotta get to an oasis. Vince Staples, beyond his social justice points that he's making about the relations between black and white people, one of the points that he makes a lot is rappers don't really know how to handle money because nobody teaches them.
Yeah,
if you're a poor kid from the inner city. And then I always talk about the inner city. I don't know if that's if you're a poor kid from an area.
If you're a poor person.
If you're a poor person, you never learn how to handle money.
Right.
Then if you happen to be a poor person who's a very talented rapper, where during that transition between like, all right, I have no money and now I'm engaging in like possibly, the most populist art form in the United States today, other than like film, I guess, the most populist and accessible and like do-it-yourself art form in the United States today. I'm engaging in that, and people love it. Now I have a lot of money. At what point in that process do you learn how to handle money?
Yep.
At what point in that process do you learn how to pay taxes?
That's part of the... There are so many examples where that becomes an issue, and that's why I definitely... why it definitely does affect all poor people. I mean... you have those famous moments of ODB taking a limo to pick up his welfare check. I don't know if you ever heard about that happening.
I did. That's a pretty famous moment.
Yeah. And you have, now a lot NFL players, when they retire, they have to go through a money management course.
Exactly. Same situation.
They've had, since they were in high school or college, millions of dollars being thrown at them every year. They have literally not been able to spend their money faster than they were making it. And now, how many NFL players go bankrupt after,
it's like lottery. Year. It's like lottery winners.
And that's the next point I was going to make is I saw on a much smaller scale, but a very real situation of I worked with a cook who was a high school dropout. Great guy. It was one of the best moments in my entire life. Now, I honestly feel like I've never had like much of an ego, but I feel like that's kind of a dick thing to say because you can't tell that about yourself. But one of the best like experiences I've ever had in my life was I graduated college. I had my bachelor's degree. I applied at like 10 places and could not find a job. The 10th place that I applied to hired me as a part-time line cook. And the guy who trained me was a high school dropout. And that was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And that cook who trained me went to a casino and he won a pretty good chunk of money, especially for a poor dude that lived with his parents in his 30s. But being a poor dude, he had never had that much money. And it wasn't even that much money. A few grand.
Mm-hmm.
And so from my perspective, who I also have never had much money, but I've also had more opportunities to learn about saving and budgeting than some people have. I know when I was down and out right after I graduated college and I was at like my poorest moments, literally homeless for a little bit.
Yeah.
I literally said, if I could just get some money to get my foot up. And I did. People that loved me saw that I was having a very hard time. My grandmother ended up giving me about $500, and my brother, when he saw it, he was going into the Navy, and my little brother, which is very hard to take money from your little brother.
Mm-hmm.
He was going into the Navy. He had just got his tax return, and he said, I can't spend it anyway. Please take some of this, and I know you're having a hard time. And it worked for me. I got my shit together, and I progressed from there because I have some knowledge about how to have money.
Mm-hmm.
This cook won some money, and I was thinking to myself, like, man, this is great. He has had such a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be able to get some footing, make a little progress. And he was living with his parents, and kind of the first time I'd ever seen it happen on a personal level, he bought himself a new phone, which is cool. Sometimes you need a new phone to
Mm-hmm.
help yourself and help find jobs. He had a job, but just help yourself. Yeah. He gave like $500 to his parents to help, say thank you for letting me live here. Here's some oil money or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of it was gone in about a week or so.
Oh man.
Just party, went out and went drinking every night, partied with his friends, bought his friends drinks, just bought himself a PlayStation 3 that he ended up having to, give back to Rent-A-Center a month later. Uh-huh. Just like, has no knowledge and kind of wasted. So I think that is a very real problem for anyone without money that has never had experience with how to have money and not blow it. And I think that it definitely shows in rap music too, where you have all this money thrown at a person who has never had money. Mm-hmm. And especially in an area of entertainment where the whole thing is saying, look how much money I have.
Exactly.
You know how much money I have because look how much money I spend.
Mm-hmm. That's another thing Vince Staples talks about a lot, is the fact that a rapper will not get famous unless they are pretending to be richer than they are.
Yeah.
Because when a rapper starts out, they're a working musician.
Yeah.
Like we don't necessarily have the most personal experience, but I think we both have known working musicians, and know what that life is like. It's not easy.
No.
It's a lot of like scrimping and saving and prioritizing.
Another aspect of that people might not know about, that I learned about from reading about Tom Waits, and similarly, in a weird way, my uncle, although it had nothing to do with music, when you look for a job, you have to look, for Tom Waits it was dishwashing in restaurants. You cannot look for a job that pays well, because you need to never second guess. When you have the opportunity to go on a 2-week tour, you got to quit your job. That's right. It. And so you have to look for crappy jobs that you can quit and then find another one to replace it. Mm-hmm. Because if you look for one like a career type job, that might be a little too much pressure to just up and quit when you have the opportunity to do a small musical venture. And living that lifestyle is very challenging.
It's stressful. It's constant stress, especially like your health insurance.
Yeah,
you're not going to get health insurance at a series of dishwashing
Hopefully
jobs.
You don't get sick.
Yeah, don't fucking break an arm or something, because you're fucked. You'll be fucked forever at that point. Thanks, America. Coming
from the perspective of a union man, even if you get hired at a job that has a union, most of the time there's a grace period. You can't join the union for like 6 months or whatever. Mm-hmm. So any protection you might have from the job, you are not privy to, because you're going to work there for 3 weeks and then quit when you can go to Florida and back.
Right.
So I just think it's very it's very interesting. And so it definitely goes to show that these working musicians do not lead. They're taking big risks. And even when they're not being the working musician and they're being the dishwasher or whatever, they're living as simply as possible so they can just throw it away when the time needs to. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, like you said, oh, people love what I do. Right. Here's $1 billion all at once. That, unfortunately, that is kind of the strange thing with rap music too, is that when you work for yourself, especially in the entertainment industry, you don't get steady paychecks. You get big lumps of money that have to carry you through until you finish your next thing to get your next big lump of money. I was going to go on another tangent about that, but that isn't really necessary for.
Yeah, but it's all wrapped up in this idea that Vince Staples talks about all the time, like we were saying, that like the image that rappers have to portray is so different from what they might actually be living, and then they're so used to portraying that image that maybe when the money comes, they do not know how to handle it. Yep. That I think is the ultimate point that we're talking about, and it does kind of get at like social justice issues. I kind of separated it from his social justice material, but that is a social justice issue. Income inequality, that's a big part of what is causing the kinds of conditions that Vince Staples is talking about.
Yeah,
the expectations on rappers, then people listening to rap music absorb those expectations, and the cycle continues to perpetuate itself until the Messiah, Vince Staples, comes down to free us all from this.
Yeah. I think that's probably a good point. We're at the old 2 hour mark.
At the good old 2 hours. Good old 2 hours.
Good our 2 hours of our 1 hour long podcast.
Do we have any apologies that we'd like to make?
I'm sure we'll think of some.
Yeah.
People will let us know what we need to apologize for.
I feel like I make this apology every week, but I want to apologize for apologizing so much about like talking about stuff, because I know that it doesn't bug anyone else as much as it bugs me. At least I think it. Yeah. I think it doesn't. Like, I think people are more forgiving of us saying dumb things than we are of ourselves saying dumb things. So I do want to make it clear that when we couch the kind of our social justice political commentary in so many like, all right, but we don't really know what we're talking about, but this might be wrong, so on and so forth. We're not doing that to undercut ourselves. We're not doing it because we think that the audience demands it. At least I don't know about you, but I know that for me, it's not the case. I'm just
trying to stay out of trouble, Ben.
Yeah.
That's not the case.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's really going to get me into trouble.
I don't want to get in a fucking Twitter war tomorrow night when I.
Yeah. I do that just because it's important to me to accurately represent where I stand.
Yep.
And where I stand on a lot of this stuff is always shifting, and the way that I represent that constant shifting is by always saying, but that might not be right.
For me, maybe this is selfish, but I always like to reiterate that I don't know certain perspectives, so that when I give you an opinion, you, at least the listener, knows that I'm speaking strongly because I do feel like I know this, like coming from my opinion on something, versus when I have to make a assumption about somebody else's opinion on something.
But right. Yeah. Overall, are you glad to have delved into Vince Staples?
I am. I'm very glad, and I think I'm gonna buy Big Fish Theory today, and as soon as I can get my hands on that 7-inch of Prima Donna.
Yeah. It's a cool looking 7-inch. Have you seen the like album cover?
I've seen the album cover.
It's like his giant head.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's Big Fish Theory. I had high expectations for that album, and it blew my expectations out of the water. I am so pumped about that album. I'm so excited about it. I think that it's one of the best. It's going to be on my year-end list. Guaranteed. It might be at the top.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk a little bit about what's coming up?
Yeah, because that is relevant to what's coming up.
Yes.
I hadn't realized... I realized it was July, but I had seen a video. I'll give a shout out so I don't get accused of ripping anyone off. The Needle Drop put up a video of their top 10 albums of the year so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, like, oh yeah, it's July. We are halfway through 2017, and I'm not very good at math, but I think that means that roughly 5 of my top 10 right now will probably be in my top 10.
There's a good chance.
At the end of the year.
Yeah.
So next week, I think we're just going to, instead of picking one thing to focus on, Ben and I, being the media hounds that we are, are going to look into what has come out for games, music, and movies and books or whatever this year so far. And kind of see, like, oh, how's our top 10 list shaping up? What are some of our favorite releases from this year? And maybe things we still have high hopes for.
Yeah, maybe some things that we're anticipating for the rest of the year. That might be fun to talk about.
So that's what we will be doing
next time.
Yep. Like always, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and... Yeah, iTunes.
Yeah, iTunes.
You can stream it from Buzzsprout, but we are on Black Gold Podcast, rather.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. If you're listening, you know how to fucking find it.
You found it already. Just look at the same place you found this.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at CurtCake5K. And I think that's about it.
Yeah, I'm still working on that website. I'm still, like, plugging away at it. I'm going to start doing some videos. Still working on a script for something about Gone Home. Just old games and shit. I'm gonna make some people mad about Gamergate.
There you go.
Yeah.
One more apology before we go.
Okay.
You may or may not have been able to hear my dog screaming through this entire episode. Sorry.
That's Franklin. He's our unofficial third chair.
He doesn't like that other animals exist aside from him, so he's either fighting with my other dog or letting other dogs that walk by know that he is not pleased that they exist. So that's it for now. We'll be back next time. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.